Hey everyone, welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be looking at digital marketing strategies, but specifically for funeral homes. I think this is going to be really interesting
Mm.
because there are some folks out there advocating for some pretty surprising approaches.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of debate right now about the best way to reach families online, especially
Oh,
given the sensitive nature of the services funeral homes provide.
yeah, and one of the things that our research has turned up is this real tension between what you might call the quick fix approach and then a much more kind of measured and organic approach. And it seems like Director's Corner is really kind of championing this organic strategy, which I think is
Yeah.
is really interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting how much pushback they're getting from these agencies that are really pushing these big ad spends. And they're often locking funeral homes into these really long
Yeah.
contracts.
Yeah, it's almost like they're playing on this fear that funeral homes have of missing out on connecting with families at a really critical time. And so they feel like they have to kind of jump on this big ad spend bandwagon. But then Director's Corner is saying, whoa, 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 hold on a second. There might be some downsides to that approach.
Yeah, they talk about this boom and bust cycle. That can happen when you pour a ton of money into ads. You might see a quick spike in traffic and inquiries, but then as soon as that ad budget dries up, everything just kind of fizzles out.
Yeah, it's not really building that lasting trust and connection that I
Mm.
think is so important for funeral homes.
Exactly. They're not selling a product. It's not like buying a pair of shoes. They're building relationships based on compassion and empathy and a deep understanding what families are going through.
And Director's Corner seems to be saying that kind of trust can't be bought with a flashy ad campaign,
Exactly. It has to be earned organically through consistent effort and authentic engagement.
which is where their focus on measuring engagement and reputation really comes in. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So instead of just looking at vanity metrics like how many people click on an ad, Director's Corner digs deeper into how families are actually interacting with a funeral home's website. How long are they staying on each page? What kind of content are they engaging with?
So it's not just about driving traffic, it's about
Mhm.
cultivating these meaningful interactions that could potentially lead to lasting relationships.
Exactly. And this ties into their focus on reputation management as well. They work with funeral homes to monitor and respond to online reviews, to address any concerns or questions families might have, and just to cultivate a positive online presence that reflects the care and compassion they offer in person.
So it's a much more holistic view of what success looks like online. It's not just about immediate conversions, it's about building a brand that is trusted and respected within the community.
That's a great way to put it. And I think that's an important distinction to make because so many funeral homes feel pressured to chase those quick wins. But Director's Corner is essentially saying slow down, focus on building genuine connections, and the results will follow.
So let's unpack some of the specific strategies that Directors Corner is advocating for. They talk a lot about these organic strategies. Can you help our listeners understand what that means in practice?
Yeah, so in this context, organic basically means attracting families to your website and social media pages through valuable content and a strong online presence, rather than just relying on paid advertising.
So it's less about interrupting people with ads and more about being discoverable when they're actively seeking information or support.
Exactly. Think about it when a family experiences a loss. They often turn to the internet for guidance. They might search for funeral homes in their area, information about grief support, resources for planning a service. Director's Corner wants to make sure your funeral home is the one they find. During those critical moments,
And they do that through a combination of different approaches, right? I know SEO comes up a lot in our source material. Can you explain what role SEO plays in all of this?
sure, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and it's basically about making sure your website appears high up. In the search results, when people search for relevant keywords, it can seem a little daunting, but Director's Corner emphasizes that. Even small, consistent efforts can make a big difference.
So for a funeral home director who might not be super tech savvy, what's a good starting point when it comes to SEO?
Well, one of the simplest things you can do is make sure your website clearly lists your services, your location, your contact information. It might seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many funeral homes neglect those basic details.
Okay, so clear and concise information is key. What else?
Think about the questions families are likely to have during a time of loss. Do you offer pre-planning services? Do you have experience working with veterans? Do you have a grief support group? Answering these questions on your website not only provides valuable information to families, but it also helps search engines understand what your funeral home specializes in.
So in a way, SEO is about thinking like the families you serve and making sure your website is tailored to their needs.
Absolutely. And it's not just about ticking boxes for search engines. It's about creating a genuinely helpful and informative resource for families during a difficult time.
Now, I know SEO is just one piece of the puzzle. Director's Corner also talks a lot about the importance of content marketing. Can you explain what that is and how it fits into their overall strategy?
Sure. So content marketing is all about creating and sharing valuable content that attracts and engages your target audience. For funeral homes, this could include blog posts about grief support, articles about funeral planning, videos explaining different types of services, even downloadable guides offering practical advice for families.
So it's about positioning yourself as a trusted resource, not just a business, trying to make a sale.
Exactly, and that's a crucial distinction to make, especially in an industry as sensitive as funeral services. By providing helpful, informative content, you're building trust with families long before they ever need your services. You're establishing yourself as a compassionate guide during a difficult time.
And that trust can ultimately translate into choosing your funeral home when the time comes.
Precisely. But content marketing isn't just about attracting new families. It's also about staying connected with those who have already used your services. You can use your content to share updates about your funeral home, offer ongoing grief support resources, or simply remind families that you're there for them, even after the service is over.
It's about building lasting relationships that go beyond a single transaction.
That's exactly what Director's Corner emphasizes. And it's a powerful message, especially in contrast to the short transactional focus of many traditional marketing agencies.
Okay, we've talked about SEO and content marketing, but what about social media? I know that can be a bit of a minefield for funeral homes. How does Director's Corner advise funeral homes to navigate that space effectively?
It's true, social media can feel like a delicate balance for funeral homes. You want to be present and connect with your community, but you also need to be mindful of the sensitive nature of your work. Director's Corner encourages funeral homes to use social media to humanize their brand and build relationships with families.
So what does that look like in practice? What kind of content are they recommending?
They encourage sharing behind-the-scenes glimpses of the funeral home, highlighting the dedication and compassion of the staff, showcasing the ways you're serving your community. You can also use social media to share links to your helpful blog posts, articles, and guides, further positioning yourself as a trusted resource.
So it's less about overt advertising and more about showcasing your values and expertise.
Precisely. And it's important to remember that social media is a two-way conversation. Director's Corner stresses the importance of responding to comments, answering questions, and engaging with followers authentically.
It's about showing that you're listening, that you care, and that you're there to support families in any way you can.
Exactly, and that's a powerful message to convey online, especially in an industry that's often perceived as being somewhat distant or impersonal.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm already starting to rethink my own assumptions about digital marketing for the funeral industry.
It's a real paradigm shift, isn't it? Moving away from the hard sell and embracing a more relational approach.
Absolutely, and I think that's what makes Director's Corner's approach so compelling. They're not just trying to get funeral homes more clicks or leads. They're trying to help them build lasting connections with families based on trust and genuine care.
And that's something that resonates deeply with families, regardless of whether they're actively seeking funeral services or not. So we've talked about Director's Corner's unique approach to digital marketing for funeral homes, but now let's delve into how their strategies actually translate into real-world results.
You know, our listeners, they're practical folks. They want to see how these ideas play out in the real world. Beyond just the theory, give us the goods. What kind of impact are funeral homes seeing when they implement Director's Corner's methods?
Well, let's start with SEO because that's often where funeral homes struggle the most. Director's Corner doesn't just tell their clients to target broad keywords like funeral home. They go much deeper, helping them identify what are called long-tail keywords.
Long-tail keywords. That sounds a bit technical. Can you break that down for us?
Sure, think about it this way. If someone in your town searches simply for funeral home, they'll get a massive list of results, including competitors from all over. But what if they search for something more specific like cremation services for veterans in your town name, or funeral home with grief support groups? Those longer, more specific phrases are long-tail keywords, and they attract families who are looking for exactly what your funeral home offers.
So it's about getting hyper-local and really anticipating the specific needs of families in your community.
Exactly. And Director's Corner provides the tools and expertise to help funeral homes uncover those valuable long-tail keywords that their competitors might be missing.
That's smart. But getting found in search results isn't just about keywords, right? I know Director's Corner emphasizes something called schema markup. What's that all about?
You're right, keywords are just the starting point. Schema markup is a bit more technical, but it's incredibly powerful. It's basically a way of structuring your website's data so that search engines like Google can understand it better.
Okay, I'm already feeling a little lost in the technical weeds here. Can you give us a real-world example of how this benefits a funeral home?
Imagine someone searches for funeral homes in your town. With basic SEO, your website might show up in the results, but it'll look pretty generic, just a title and a brief description. But with schema markup, your listing can be enhanced with things like your star ratings from online reviews, your business hours, direct links to specific services, even photos of your facility.
So you're not just hoping people click on your link, you're making it incredibly easy for them to see right there in the search results that your funeral home is the best choice.
Exactly. It's about creating a rich, informative search listing that stands out from the competition and encourages families to click through to your website.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, shifting gears a bit, we've talked about SEO, but what about content marketing? How does Director's Corner guide funeral homes in creating content that actually resonates with families?
This is where their deep understanding of the funeral industry really shines. They encourage funeral homes to create content that addresses the real questions and concerns families have, but might not feel comfortable asking directly.
Can you give us some examples of what that kind of content might look like?
Sure, it could be blog posts with titles like What to Do When a Loved One Passes Away, a step-by-step guide, or Understanding the Different Types of Funeral Services, or How to Plan a Meaningful Memorial Service. They also encourage creating downloadable guides on topics like pre-planning or grief support.
So it's about providing genuine value and guidance, not just trying to sell your services.
Precisely. And this approach has a powerful impact on families. They see your funeral home not just as a business, but as a compassionate resource that understands their needs and is there to support them during a difficult time.
And that builds trust, which, as we've discussed, is essential in the funeral industry.
Absolutely. Now, content marketing isn't just about creating great content. It's also about making sure that content is seen by the right people. Director's Corner helps funeral homes promote their content through social media, email marketing, and other channels.
So it's a multifaceted approach that combines content creation with strategic distribution.
Exactly. They help funeral homes create a content ecosystem that attracts families at different stages of the decision-making process, whether they're just starting to think about pre-planning or actively seeking funeral services for a loved one.
Okay, let's talk about social media for a bit, because I know that can be a tricky area for funeral homes. How does Director's Corner advise them to use social media effectively?
Social media is a powerful tool for funeral homes to connect with their community, but it needs to be approached thoughtfully and sensitively. Director's Corner encourages funeral homes to use social media to share behind-the-scenes glimpses of their work, to highlight the stories of the families they serve, with permission, of course, and to offer words of comfort and support.
It's about showing the human side of the funeral industry right, reminding people that there are real people, caring professionals behind these services.
Exactly. And it's about creating a space for conversation. Director's Corner encourages funeral homes to respond to comments, answer questions, and engage in genuine dialogue with their followers. It's about building relationships, not just broadcasting messages.
This is a lot to take in. How do funeral homes know if all of this effort is actually paying off? I know Director's Corner emphasizes data and measurement. Can you share some examples of the kind of results they're seeing?
They track a wide range of metrics, from website traffic and engagement to online reviews and social media growth. One funeral home they worked with saw a 300% increase in organic website traffic within just 6 months of implementing their strategies. Another saw their Google My Business listing jump to the top of the local search results, leading to a significant increase in phone calls and website inquiries.
Wow, those are some impressive numbers.
And it's not just about vanity metrics. Director's Corner helps funeral homes track how their online efforts are translating into real-world business outcomes, like increased pre-need arrangements or higher overall client satisfaction.
So it's about connecting the dots between digital marketing and the bottom line.
Precisely. They help funeral homes see the return on their investment, not just in terms of clicks and likes, but in terms of meaningful relationships and tangible business growth.
This is really making me rethink the way funeral homes approach marketing.
It's a paradigm shift for sure, moving away from that quick fix mentality and embracing a more long-term relationship focused approach.
It seems like Director's Corner is really leading the way in the future of digital marketing for the funeral industry.
I think they are. Their data-driven, ethical, and human-centered approach is a refreshing alternative to the often aggressive tactics of traditional marketing agencies.
I'm curious to hear more about how their contract-free model works and what that means for funeral homes.
That's a great question.
And I'm really looking forward to kind of digging into this whole contract-free model that Director's Corner uses. It's pretty unusual in the marketing world.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a bold move on their part. But I think it really speaks to their confidence in their approach and their commitment to putting their clients' needs first.
And, we've talked a lot about the downsides of those long-term contracts that some of these agencies are pushing. Can you kind of elaborate on why that's so problematic, especially in the context of the funeral industry?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. They often lock funeral homes into these contracts with these huge upfront fees and all these promises of results that may or may not actually materialize.
Right. And then funeral homes kind of stuck. They're stuck in this contract. They've already paid a bunch of money,
Oh.
and they might not even be seeing the results they were promised.
Exactly, and it creates this sense of dependence. The funeral home feels like they have to keep throwing good money after bad, even if they're not happy with the service.
And it makes it really hard for them to adapt their strategy as their needs change.
Exactly, and I think that's particularly problematic in the funeral industry. Where building trust and authenticity is so crucial. Families can sense when a funeral home's marketing feels forced or inauthentic, and that can really damage the relationships you're trying to build.
So it seems like Director's Corner is really trying to address that issue with their contract-free model.
They are, and I think it's brilliant. It gives funeral homes the flexibility to choose the services that best meet their needs, to adjust their strategy as they go, and ultimately to maintain control over their own marketing.
They're not handing over the reins to some agency.
Exactly. They're active participants in the process.
So more of a partnership.
Exactly. It's a collaboration. And that's so essential for success in any marketing endeavor, especially one as nuanced and sensitive as funeral services.
This all sounds really promising. But I'm sure there are some funeral home directors out there who are thinking, okay, this sounds great in theory, but I've been doing things the old way for so long, I don't even know where to begin.
I understand that. It can be daunting to try something new, especially when you've been doing things a certain way for so long.
So what advice would you give to someone who's ready to make a change, but feeling a little overwhelmed?
I think the first step is to shift your mindset. Instead of viewing marketing as this necessary expense or a chore, start thinking about it as an opportunity to build genuine connections with families in your community.
So it's about moving away from that
Yeah,
transactional, sales-driven mentality
exactly.
and embracing a more relational approach.
Precisely. Focus on providing value, sharing your expertise, demonstrating your commitment to serving families with compassion and authenticity.
And remember, it's not about quick fixes or overnight miracles.
Absolutely.
It's about building trust and relationships over time.
And be patient with yourself. It takes time to shift gears and to embrace a new way of doing things. But the rewards are well worth the effort.
I think that's a great note to end on. The future of digital marketing for funeral homes is not about flashy campaigns or manipulative tactics. It's about building genuine connections, fostering trust, and being a source of comfort and support for families when they need it most.
Beautifully said. And Director's Corner is leading the charge in this much-needed evolution of the industry.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. I hope you found it as insightful and thought-provoking as we did. And to all of you listening out there in the funeral service community, we encourage you to embrace this new way of thinking about digital marketing. It's time to move beyond the quick fixes and start building something truly meaningful and lasting.